Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our meeting this morning. This is the ordinary meeting 6 of 2019. I'd like to commence by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land upon which we meet, the Butchulla people, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. We're very fortunate today to have Carly Frangos here today from the Harvey Bay Baptist Church, who will lead us in opening prayer. Good morning, Carly.
Good morning, guys. Good morning, everyone. My name is Carly Frangos, and I'm the children's pastor at Harvey Bay Baptist Church. Now, I'm told that those who usually come to address you start with a Bible verse, but I'm a children's pastor, and we always like to do things a little differently. So today I'm going to read you a short poem. I'd rather see a sermon than hear one any day. I'd rather one should walk with me than merely tell me the way. The eye's a better pupil and more willing than the ear. Fine counsel is confusing, but examples are always clear. And the best of all the preachers are the men who live their creeds. For to see good put into action is what everybody needs. Let's pray together. Father God, we pray today asking for your guidance, your wisdom and support as we meet to serve our community. We seek your blessing on the tasks before us. Bless our efforts with clear insight, our deliberations with wisdom, our actions with integrity and clarity, and our decisions with impartiality. We pray this in your precious name. Amen.
Thank you, Carly. There are no apologies, but I know Councillor Taylor is running late. Disclosure of interests. Are there any disclosure of interests?
Yes. I'll go first.
Okay, Councillor Everett.
Yeah, I'll go first. I'd like to, item 16.1.1, which is our local law review. I am the president of the Harvey Bay Surf Lifesaving Club. We, as a club, are beach users. The intern local law 1 makes mention of the surf club as being a beach user in this instance. I don't think there's a conflict of interest in this matter, and there's no actual benefit to me in any way because the surf club is beach users. And I plan to stay in the room.
Okay, what item is it?
16.1. 16.1.1.
Okay, I move that Councillor Everard does not have either a real or perceived conflict of interest in the matter and is accordingly free to participate in the meeting while agenda item 16.1 is discussed, including by voting on the matter. Is there a seconder? Councillor Sanderson, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Councillor Madden.
Mr Mayor, I have a perceived conflict of interest in item 10.5.3. This is about concessions for waste. The church of which my husband is on the management committee, he's a treasurer, may receive a benefit under this waste management fee concession policy. And on that basis, I'm declaring this. However, I don't think that there is any greater benefit to me than there is to the vast majority of the community, and therefore I would elect to have councillors vote on whether I can stay in the room.
Yep. So which item was this, sorry, again? 10.5. Concession policies. So he's on the So he's on the management committee. Yeah.
May receive benefit from.
The church may.
Yeah.
May.
I'll say there is a perceived conflict.
Probably is a budget issue, so.
And she's going to stay in the room?
Yeah.
It's up to you to determine what you want to move, or a council to determine.
Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Want to ask anyone else got a conflict in relation?
Oh, yes. Does anyone else have a conflict on this matter because they won't get to vote? Yep. So I move that Councillor Mattern does not have either a real or perceived conflict of interest in the matter and is accordingly free to vote while agenda item 10.5.3 is discussed, including by voting on the matter. Is there a seconder? I'll put that in. All in favour?
Daniel, you can't vote.
Any opposed? That's carried.
All except Daniel.
Okay.
Daniel's conflict?
Daniel, yours is a similar one?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yep.
And what's the nature of the
Okay,
conflict?
so mine's similar, 10.5.3. I'll declare it perceived. The nature of my interest is I'm a member of Maryborough City Church and on the board as well. And they may receive a benefit from this policy. And my wife's also a member of the church. Also, my wife works with Bayside Transformations, which is a not-for-profit organisation. They could also in the future receive a benefit from this policy. I don't think it's in the interest where I need to leave the room and isn't sufficient significance that will lead me to make a decision that's contrary to the public interest. So if I'll ask that my colleagues make a vote on this matter, but I would like to stay in the room and represent the community on this decision.
Yep. I move that Councillor Sanderson does not have either a real or perceived conflict of interest in the matter and is accordingly free to participate in the meeting while agenda item 10.5.3 is discussed, including by voting on the matter. Is there a seconder? Councillor O'Keefe. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried. Are there any? Councillor Truscott.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm not declaring any conflicts, but I've got two statements to declare in this matter. The first is I'd like to advise the Chamber of a previous personal interest I had in relation to item 10.3.2, where in the past I had conducted funeral services for both local funeral homes. I have not been involved for over 3 years now, and I hold no qualification to conduct funeral services. Location of funeral services has no reflection on who conducts a funeral service. So I'm not declaring a conflict of interest, either real or perceived, because I do not believe that there could be any conflict for something I have no involvement with or connection to. But so out of an abundance of caution, should someone choose to declare that I have an interest, I'm advising the Chamber to present that opportunity now and asking that this statement be recorded in the minutes.
Okay.
Done? The second one is I would like to advise the Chamber, again in relation to item 10.3.2, that one of the parks proposed for the trial is Truscott Park. It is an association by name only. I have not been involved in the process of park selection for this item and receive no personal benefit if this park is used by the public. But again, out of an abundance of caution, should someone choose to declare that I do have an interest, I'm advising the Chamber to present that opportunity and asking if this statement can please be recorded in the minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool.
Are there any further disclosures? Councillor Chapman?
Yes, Mr Mayor, this afternoon today there's actually they're talking about the consideration of land for the hospice. I have got a conflict of interest. I am a member of the hospice committee. My wife is the treasurer of the hospice committee, and I will be leaving the room to manage that conflict.
Okay.
Also, today we're looking at the Fraser Coast Rural Residential Strategies. I'm saying there's a perceived conflict of interest, and I feel that I have developed 5 acre blocks before, but I've sold all them 5 acre blocks and got no blocks left. And it's a perceived conflict of interest, and I feel my input would be beneficial to the community, and I will be staying in the room.
Okay. So the first one, because he's leaving, we don't need to do anything
That's
on?
right.
So you don't have any land that's to be developed?
No.
Yeah.
When you read the report,
Yeah.
Mr Mayor, it doesn't sort of deal with my area either.
Yep. So which number is this? This is
The rural land
Rural
strategy.
strategy.
10.3.4. Okay. I move that Councillor Chapman does not have either a real or perceived conflict of interest in the matter and is accordingly free to participate in the meeting while agenda item 10.3.4 is discussed, including by voting on the matter.
Happy to second that.
Seconded, Councillor Everard. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried. Any further disclosures of interest? No. Okay. Just before we go on, I thought I was well enough to chair this meeting, but I'm not. So I'm just going to move, I'm sort of recovering from a virus, so what we'll do is we'll move around a couple of the agenda items, and I'll leave, and whoever's the deputy mayor can take over the chair. So how can I change the agenda order?
You're the chair,
Yep.
so you can determine
Okay.
the order that business is considered. I'll just check.
So can I just clarify that
Yep.
the deputy mayor changes after the close of the meeting or at? Immediate. Well, no, it's not, you have to close a meeting before you change.
Okay,
Well, you can amend could amend the motion to say that the deputy
I would have thought
position starts.
once the council makes a decision, that decision is valid, and that's at the.
yeah, because we declare it vacant, the very first part is that we declare it
Yeah,
vacant. Yeah.
so, I don't think there's any issues there. So so it's entirely up to you, Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
so how you want to set the
Okay.
agenda.
We'll move, that was first, okay, we'll move to item 10.2.1, appointment of deputy mayor, on page 82.
Make a comment on this?
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in relation to the process for this, I think it would be appropriate if councillors considered the recommendations 1 to 3, and then perhaps move a motion to suspend standing orders to conduct the ballot, and then resume standing orders, and then consider recommendation 4.
82.
Sorry.
So we need somebody to move items
Sir.
1 to 3?
Let's hold on.
Mr.
Question.
Oh, yeah.
Chair, this is just a question. I'm not sure that any of that quite specifies how the ballot's to be conducted.
Yeah.
And I was proposing, and will move appropriately if necessary, that the motion be conducted by secret ballot, and that in the event that there are more than 2 candidates, it be by exhaustive preferential voting.
Yeah, well, we
Yeah,
wouldn't
that-
say in secret ballot in the motion, because the ballot's sort of informal, and then the actual motion is the motion
Yeah.
that appoints the deputy mayor.
So, Mr. Mayor, we've actually taken the advice of councillors, and we sought separate legal advice. We are looking at doing preferential secret ballot is the process, and at the end of the ballot, I will declare the successful candidate, but I will not declare the number of votes for or against. So just from a procedural perspective, I think items 1 to 3 need to be moved to allow us to determine that the position is vacant, the call for nominations, and the process, and then suspend standing orders to hear from perhaps the nominees, and then conduct the ballot, resume standing orders, and then consider item recommendation 4. But we're doing a preferential voting system and secret.
Yep. So Councillor Truscott's moving items 1 to 3, and that standing orders be suspended. Oh, 1 to 3, and seconded by Councillor Mattern. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Do we need a seconder for a procedural motion?
Be safe to do so, Mr.
Okay, is that seconded, Councillor Everard? Standing orders be suspended. All in favour? That's carried unanimously.
So call for nomination.
Okay, I'll call for nominations for deputy mayor.
Mr. Mayor, as I have done each year, I'm an advocate for consistency in the leadership. I believe that this council has seen enough tumultuous times in this process, and for that purpose, I would like to see the deputy mayor maintained in his current role. So I nominate Councillor Darren Everard, notwithstanding that I believe many councillors could take on that role, but I believe for consistency, it's good to have the same person in leadership moving into the next cycle of election terms.
Are there any other nominations? Councillor Hanson?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I nominate Councillor Dennis Chapman for the role.
Are there any further nominations? So there's 2 nominations, so we'll now distribute the ballot papers.
You may want to allow the
Okay,
people
yep.
nominated to talk to their nomination, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor, and thank you, councillors, for the support since I've been in this job. I think it's a team effort. what we do as councillors. And yes, I have been the deputy mayor, but I think I'm 1 in 11 of a team that's taken our region forward. I would like to continue in this position. I think the Fraser Coast is situated. I think we're ready to go forward at a great rate of knots, and would definitely like to continue in that role. Understanding that this job is of the job of councillors. It's hard work for us all, and I think that under George's leadership, we've all come ahead in leaps and bounds, and I think the region's starting to show the benefits from it. So, I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors. As I stated, that I want to work as a team with the council and work with George, the mayor, and the thing is that I've been on numerous committees throughout my life, and I feel that, as I stated there, that I think it's an opportunity that would help me grow, and Councillor Light actually did say at one time there, he did step up into the role. He said, if you ever get the opportunity to do it, it's really well worth it, because to realise the extra load that there is there, and I really feel that I'm ready for it, and I must say that the councillors must know that I'm a councillor that if I feel is the right thing, I will put the hard yards in and get some projects across the line, and talk to business people out there, and help the mayor with make this a more of a vibrant community, because really that's the idea. You put your hand up, is to be a council, is to help your community, and I've used that role right through my whole life, and is to help the community. And I'd just like to say that Councillor Everard, you've done a great job as Deputy Mayor, and I'm not trying to take the position off you, but I just feel it'd be good to give another council an opportunity, and I feel that I'm ready for that opportunity, and I'd just like the support from the other councillors to nominate me as Deputy Mayor to the end of the term. So that's all I can say. Thank you.
So, Mr Mayor, I've distributed the ballot papers. I'll give councillors a few minutes, and I've had a specially prepared ballot box made up. I'll pass that around if you could put your ballots in that.
Can you explain the process of how it will be counted and how we resolve to destroy the ballot papers, or will the people who were elected have an opportunity to review those if they deem it appropriate?
So the ballot will be conducted in secret. I will advise the mayor of the successful nominee, but will not advise of the number of votes. Keith Parsons, the Director of Organisational Services, will be the scrutineer. We'll both sign off on it. We'll count the ballots, both sign off to show that it's a true and accurate record of the votes. The ballot papers will be kept in a confidential file, should they ever need to be retrieved under a Rights to Information Act or similar legislation.
And just to confirm, you've not asked for any councillor's name, just the so it's only got the person that's voting for.
It's the ballot paper says first preference 1 councillor, and you put the councillor's name in.
Just for example, I'm voting. My name doesn't go on here.
No,
so,
no.
No.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And they've only distributed the equal number of ballot papers to the number of councillors, so there is no way of determining which councillor voted for which position.
For the purpose of the two candidates, can we get an acceptance from them or an acknowledgement that they're happy with the process that you've just outlined?
Okay.
Mr Chair, if I could just outline, neither of them actually used their microphones, but can we on record state that both of them were comfortable with that process?
Definitely comfortable. Better do the.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Councillor Madden has moved that we resume standing orders. All in favour? That's carried. I want to thank both the nominees. You both would make really good deputy mayors, and the result of the ballot was that Councillor Everard had the majority of votes. So we'll need a motion. Yeah, Councillor Taylor, you're moving
Recommendation
for,
with Councillor Everard's name.
seconded Councillor Truscott. All in favour? That's carried unanimously.
Just be that the obviously insert councillor's name is omitted and added in there as Councillor Darren
Darren
Everard.
Everard,
Yep.
that's right. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Yep, Councillor Chapman.
I'd like to congratulate Councillor Everard on the position of becoming deputy mayor, and I've got full support behind him. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Chapman.
Thank you.
Before I excuse myself, we'll just move to my two motions, because perhaps without me here, they won't have much context. Ordinary item 11.1, glyphosate. This is page 370.
370.
Yeah, 370, sorry.
Sorry, it's
Yep.
just that we're jumping around and it's a bit...
See that I'm moving that the Chief Executive Officer be directed to provide a report on the use of glyphosate products used by the Council and the risks associated with these products, investigate and trial alternative herbicide products that do not contain glyphosate, and provide a report on their effectiveness and cost, and immediately discontinue the use of glyphosate products until such time as the report has been considered by Council. Is there a seconder? Yeah. Okay, well, there's no seconder yet, so you don't even need to. It's going to lapse from one to the seconder. Yeah, yeah. Okay, seconded Councillor Taylor. Is there an amendment move? Yeah,
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, overall, I can understand the caution of wanting to investigate an option like this, and I think that's worth investigating. My only concern is regarding point 3 about the immediate discontinuance of it in light of the information provided by the CEO from the staff regarding the use of it. So I don't know whether it would be, I suppose it would be to remove point 3 until such time as a report has been provided to allow for, yeah.
Mr Mayor, maybe I've got an amendment that's around that part of it.
Sure.
oh, yeah, so his amendment was going to be that you delete section, clause 3, though.
He's moved it. He's moved the motion.
Should we just deal with that first? Yeah.
Second.
Is that it?
Yeah, I'm happy to second.
Okay, so it seems like there's a consensus. I'll agree to that amendment if the seconder agrees to the amendment. Yeah, the deletion of point 3.
I'm sorry, Mr Mayor, but I don't stand in orders, but I think that maybe my suggestion could go halfway.
Okay.
Possible at some point.
But you've got to move it. You've got someone that's moved it.
Okay, I disagree with the amendment then, so we'll have to put the amendment. Okay, do you want to speak to your amendment?
Sure. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, as I was saying, I think it's worthwhile investigating, especially in light of the case that has been brought to light from the United States. But I think in light of the information provided by the CEO, and perhaps if the CEO wishes to expand on that information, that the staff have been using the product for decades now, and they are using it in appropriate, safe methods, and feel that that is a good way to go. I think until we get the report, I wouldn't feel personally comfortable knowing what work might then further be created by discontinuing it, which if other methods didn't work, until we had a report back. So I don't want to disagree with it, but I think I'd just rather wait for the report before making a final decision.
Councillor Madden?
Yes, and I'm speaking in support of the amended motion. I've done a little bit of research on this, and I have been trialling eco-friendly processes on my own property, and can I tell you that they basically fail. My concern around discontinuing glyphosate immediately means that we have to resort to other chemicals, because we do have some obligations under the Biosecurity Act, and I'm concerned about the message that that might be sending out to the community. My concern is we need to take a risk-based approach to this, and maybe using alternative chemicals may also impose a risk on health and safety of our staff. They're probably, my guess is because they're not being used and because glyphosate is being so widely used, that they're not as effective, and I'm concerned about what kind of environmental issues they might impose on our council land, but also the message that we're sending out there. So I fully support going back and having, in light of those court cases, stepping back and saying, well, in light of that, are we safe? Let's have a look at it. But I'm not in favour of immediately suspending it. The other thing I'd like to say is I'm a little bit cautious about those court cases, because it's a jury that's made a decision, and sometimes they're swayed by emotion. And I'd like to know, unless we've actually done a review of the whole court proceedings, I'm not sure that it gives us a really good basis of understanding why the court came to that decision. And there may be other factors that are involved that made the court come to that decision. It's not just the direct use of glyphosate or the glyphosate itself. It may be other factors that impacted on that. So I guess I just would, I'm supporting a degree of caution. Certainly get the report. Let's have a look at it then.
Okay. Any further speakers? Councillor Light?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I will support the amendment. My comment would have been regarding 3, is probably come halfway through it, where you could have actually said to limit the use of it where possible, and the council to develop further risk strategy using that product. So it is further consideration for the staff not to just go to that product by default, but consideration of that product and the use of it. So I don't know if the person making this amendment would like to have a look at that, but I thought it was a good compromise.
Well, we'll do this amendment, and then you can move that as an amendment. Yeah. Yeah. So are there any, Councillor Hanson?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Chairman. Look, I'll be supporting the amendment. I do understand where you're coming from. I think it's always good to have a review, and as a dairy farmer who actually engages in biological practices, I think that Roundup can pose some problems. But we as a council are already adding a product to it to break it down a lot quicker as well, particularly in high-profile areas such as parks and playgrounds. So my concern also would be that how are we going to keep on top of the roadside furniture, particularly in the main road network? I don't think main roads are going to step up to spray that, and as a consequence could get out of control. But I understand. Look, I certainly welcome the review. I think it's always good to do that and to make sure we're following due process and safety precautions. But I'll be supporting the amendment.
Mr Mayor, could I just ask councillors when they debate this matter if they can not use brand names, because we don't have any legal privilege here. And so we're talking about glyphosate products, regardless of what that brand might be.
Sorry, Monsanto.
Don't even say that.
Okay. Are there any further speakers? If not, I'll put the motion that this is to amend it to take out clause 3. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried 10-1. So that's now the motion. Yeah. Yeah.
The motion stands. Okay. So that's the motion. Need to move.
Yeah, okay. Did you want to speak to it before we move the motion? No, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. The other one, and I'm really sorry that I am unwell and have to go, but the other one that we need to deal with before I leave is in confidential, Fraser Coast Hospice, item 15.3. So could we, Councillor Lewis?
I just note that there's a mayoral minute being circulated as well. I wasn't sure whether you wanted to deal with that.
Councillor Everard, do that? Yeah, we'll do that after I go. Thank you. So if we can have a motion, Councillor Madden?
We move into confidential.
Yeah, so this is for item 15.3, and that is confidential under section 275H. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried.
Cameras on?
Cameras, do your hair. Righto, so just 3 while councillor Chapman is out of the room. So, councillor
Mr
Madden.
Mayor, I would like to move that we lay this matter on the table. I certainly am in principle supportive, but we need more information, significantly more information on our, and so in laying it on the table, I'd also be asking that the CEO carry out those investigations, the questions that I haven't been able to get answered prior to this meeting.
So you don't need a second?
No.
No, just put the vote.
I think, yes, it needs to go straight to vote.
Yeah.
Just check it is.
Right, we just
check.
there it is.
Okay, great.
All right, so all those in favour? That's unanimous. Thanks, councillors. Right, so
Is that correct, Mr CEO?
yes.
Let the matter lay on the table. Yeah, I had a bit of an additional conversation.
Sorry, so councillor Chapman.
Yeah, Devendra is just grabbing him.
Yeah, so.
Just cautious of
Yeah. Right, just let get organised.
Yeah, and record George's departure.
Rightio, just let me get back on track. Yes. No, actually, sorry, we have an, councillors, we have a mayoral minute, ordinary item number 4, and yeah, we'll do that one now, we'll get that out of the road. That's, councillors, you'll see the recommendation there, in accordance with the provision of the Fraser Coast Tourism and Events Limited Constitution, that we're being asked to endorse the interview panel's recommendation to nominate Fiona Gill-Martin and Glenn Miller to fill the casual vacancies of the board directors. So, yeah, everyone was handed out before.
So we've got 2 nominations.
Yep, there was 2 nominations there,
Okay.
and they.
Can I just, I might need to seek some clarification. I didn't see those names there before. Fiona Gill-Martin, I used to work for Neil Gill-Martin, who was, if it's the Fiona I'm thinking of. It is. And I used to work for her brother, so just...
No, that's...
Yes. It is that relation? Okay. I don't know if I need to declare that or...
If you believe there's a perceived conflict of interest,
Well,
you need to declare it, otherwise you don't declare it.
I haven't had anything to do with it for years, so I'm just putting that out there if anyone wants to declare it. No?
Right, so,
It's moved by councillor.
councillor Taylor, can I have a second? Oh, councillor Hanson. All those in favour? Oh, sorry. It's a mayoral minute. I thought the mayor was the only one allowed to speak on a mayoral minute. Rightio. Rightio. So, councillors, item number 5 is the confirmation of minutes from our ordinary meeting on the 22nd of May. Is any all good? So that's going to be moved by councillor Madden. Sorry, did you have something to?
Yeah, just a few issues with it, that's all.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
No, page 8 talks about... Sorry, through the chair. In relation to Truscott and I with Anzac Park, it says that we voted on it twice on the same page in relation to the same issue. So that's one thing.
Yeah, and that happened because it was a
Conflict of interest.
voted on one and then voted on the other.
That's right, but it's the same thing. So it's saying before I've even expressed my conflict that it's already been, that I'm part of that decision when I wasn't.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you had a mutual conflict.
That's
and
right.
it's recorded you as voting when in fact
With-
you didn't.
That's right.
Okay, we'll amend that.
So, no other comment, councillors? So that was moved by councillor Madden, seconded by councillor Hanson. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Rightio. Item 6 is public participation. You, Mr CEO.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Deputy Mayor. Just bear with me. I'm pleased to say that we had 2 people participate in public participation. Suzanne Denton from Fraser Coast RV Park and Mango Lodge She presented to the council her request for bitumen sealing of Bankston Road. The second participant was Mr Graham Wode, who spoke on flooding issues within the Fraser Coast, the council's 2019-20 disaster management budget initiatives, and the Sailing Club boat ramp, in addition to non-functioning flood cameras in the Maryborough region.
Mr Mayor, I move that report be received.
Do we have a seconder for that one? We need a second. Can I get a seconder for that, please? Councillor Taylor. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you, councillors. Item 7 is deputations, and there are nil. Item 8 is petitions. Do any councillors have a petition that they would like to present today? That's a nil. Item 9 is the committee and delegates reports, and we'll start on page 28. Item 9.1 is the minutes of the Heritage Advisory Committee. Starts on 28 and the recommendation is on page 29. Councillor Lewis, I do take that you'll move that. G6. And can I get a seconder for that one? Yeah. Councillor O'Keefe. Councillor Lewis, any comment?
Look, I think the report and the minutes speak for themselves, but I do have a follow-up question, if I may, and that relates to the Dominion Flour Mill building. There was, as you can see from the report, some concern that there had been some damage or partial removal of the fence, and I'm just not quite sure myself as to where that's got to in terms of having it reinstated. So perhaps the director could clarify that.
Yeah, through you, Mr Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Lewis. So, essentially, I suppose the background, just so all councillors are aware, I attended a pre-start meeting with the contractors, the demolition contractors, as well as the owners of the site. And at that meeting, Workplace Health and Safety Queensland were on site with us at the pre-start meeting. There was the portion of the fence which has been laid down. There was a major crack, essentially from the top to the bottom. It was cracked all the way through, and that portion of the fence was leaning. Workplace Health and Safety Queensland expressed some concerns that it was unsafe to work on the site with the fence in that state. And on the basis of those discussions, we agreed that portion of the fence could be laid down. On the basis that when the site is completed and cleaned up, that it will be reinstated. I've, subsequent to these minutes and the concerns expressed by the Heritage Advisory Committee, I've written to the property owner just to reiterate that and make sure that they're conscious of that requirement. They have acknowledged that and come back to me and said, yes, we're aware of that requirement. I would just, to be, I suppose, extra transparent, the other option, which the owner is aware of and they could do, is submit another application to do something different with the fence. But in the absence of them putting in another application to do something different with the fence and council approving that, the current expectation that the owner's aware of is that will be reinstated at the conclusion of the job. It's getting quite close. I don't know if councillors have been there recently, but I was there the other day and there was just one main tower was the only thing left, so it's getting very close to being cleared. After that, though, there's a range of site works, levelling, those kind of things which need to happen.
Thank you. And
Thanks, Director. No, that's fine. I don't think I need to say anything further. Thank you.
Councillor O'Keefe, any comment from you? No, all good. Councillors, will put this motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried. Councillor Taylor, we need to...
Sorry?
All those in favour, we just...
Clarity on
sorry.
on this, is that a question?
If you want to, if you want to draw attention to it, yeah.
Hang on, councillors.
No, I just in relation to the recommendation, what is the process of when someone makes application for a rates concession? It's unusual to see them actually in an open report. So is that vague enough, that question, or?
Yeah, it is pretty vague.
Do you want to make it more clear?
Yeah, if you could clarify it a
Points
bit.
2 and 3, my understanding is that information would normally be a confidential matter.
Probably, thank you, Councillor Taylor, probably preferential that individual details or identities of applicants not be included in reports that are coming to council in an open manner, because if there is because it could lead into discussion about those individuals. However, the Heritage Advisory Committee, my understanding, is accessible to the public. It is an advisory committee, so it is a public meeting. These were discussed in a public forum, but I'll take that on board. Best practice would be not to discuss grants to individual, in relation to individual people in a open forum.
Righto, so councillors, we'll just have to re-vote on that. So that was moved by Councillor Lewis, seconded by Councillor O'Keefe. Well, Stuart was talking to Ken, sorry.
You're allowed to do that under procedures.
Yeah, I didn't call.
I think you can.
Yeah, but I didn't call it.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Just calling out.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that.
Still as per
Yeah, as per the recommendation, yeah. So moved by Councillor Lewis, seconded by Councillor O'Keefe. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Sorry about that. Thank you, councillors. When are we paid today? Rightio. Item 9.2 on page 32 is the Wide Bay Water, Waste and Waste Services Advisory Committee meeting minutes. With the officer's recommendation is also on page 32. Councillor Madden, you'd like to move that on?
I have.
Yep.
I am. I will. Whatever.
A seconder for that one? Councillor Light, thank you. Councillor Madden, any comment?
No. No, it's all self-explanatory.
Yeah, Councillor Light. All good. We'll put that motion. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 9.3 is the Wide Bay Water and Waste Service Advisory Committee meeting from June. The previous one was from May, so that's from June. And these are on pages 38 to 42, and the recommendation is on page 38.
Mr Deputy Mayor, in my absence, I will move a motion that these be, what is what is the motion? Yeah, the officer's recommendation. I know you were actually present at that meeting, and I know that the other members of the committee are very, very diligent in making sure that the minutes are a true representation of the meeting, so I'm happy to put it on their behalf.
No worries. Can I get a seconder for that one? Councillor Light again. Councillor Light, any comment from you? Right, all those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Item 10.1.1 on page 43 is the open resolutions register for June, with the officer's recommendation there on page 43 as well. Councillors, any comments?
Mr Deputy Mayor, I'll note on page 72, there's a report listed on, it says there's a report listed on the current agenda for the trial of the customer service ban.
Yep.
That's been withdrawn and will come to a later meeting.
Yep.
So just for noting purposes.
No worries at all.
Am I reading this wrong? And I wasn't. I must apologise if I asked questions that have already been answered in Monday's briefing, but Councillor Everard and I were helping with the interviews for the positions of Fraser Coast Tourism Events. Just, it refers to attachment provides details of status of outstanding council resolutions and matters that have been left to lie on the table. So is that and matters that?
Yes.
Does it identify which ones, like is there a part in there that actually identifies which ones that we can, to lie on the table, or is it just?
Are they all?
I don't think we currently have any matters lying on the table, but the resolution details, the third column resolution details would specify how the council requested the matter be treated or what the resolution was.
Right, no worries, thank you.
Councillors, any other comment on this one? Questions, comment? Right, can I ask that someone move this motion? Councillor Truscott, Second, Councillor Hanson. Councillor Truscott. Any comment? No? Yeah, Councillor Hanson. Rightio. All those in favour? Again, going well, councillors. Rightio.
I know we've voted on it, but can I ask a question through the chair? This list is becoming quite large. Is there a manner in which we can, as the strategic arm, assist in reducing the size of this?
Culling.
I mean, particularly considering there's a lot of work to get through here. From a risk perspective, where do you see the issues about such a large list?
Thanks for the question, Councillor Stewart. In some part, the list is large, or there's a large number of pages. That's contributed to the monthly updates that are included in there. So every time we put a monthly update of action that's been taken, that increases the number of pages. If the council were happy just to put a current update, but I think in the past the council has liked to keep the track of progress of these. We do our best to try and move through some of these matters as quickly as possible, but some of these matters do take quite a long time. For example, I know the matter in relation to was it one of the first items has been sitting there for a year, relates to Threatened Species Action Plan. There's been considerable progress, but until we've had full satisfaction of that resolution, we keep it on the outstanding register.
So it's not. I'm not concerned about the number of pages. I'm more concerned about the amount of hours of work that's required to.
Yeah. Well,
so the process, councillors, our staff continue to work on each of these items. The updating of this spreadsheet is relatively simple process, and prior to each council agenda being prepared, the directors and I have a brief conversation on each of these items as we develop the agenda for council consideration. So updating the register isn't difficult, but I do apologise that some of these things do take quite a long time, and until such time as we satisfied every recommendation, they continue to stay on the register with monthly updates.
Mr. Chair, can I speak to that?
I guess my concern was, are we relying too heavily as a chamber on asking for a report as our default position than, say, having meetings and discussions through the round tables or having meetings with directors before we simply say, well, it's just a report? It looks to me that there seems to be a build-up of reports, and that was my only observation.
I think that's a question you need to ask other councillors.
yeah.
And I guess my point to that would be the roundtables are good, but they haven't been in process all that long.
Yeah,
And
they've
some
still
of this
been in.
stuff is what I'd call a legacy issue, and it's come from prior to. So still needs to be addressed, and my personal view is leave it there as long as it takes to do it properly.
To do it properly, yeah.
But I also like to see the updates every month, because that tells me that it's in front of mind of council officers and it's not going to be forgotten. So, you know, I know it's long, but I do appreciate it.
Councillor Truscott, you had a comment?
Oh, thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'd just like to agree with Councillor Madden. I think she's said what I wanted to say, that I appreciate it being there. I think it just keeps it being open and transparent and good to see.
Rightio, councillors. Councillor Chapman, sorry.
Yeah, I agree the same way, but one thing we've got to realise that at round tables we can't make a decision, and some of these things need decisions to be made. And I really think it's up to the officers to make the decisions, and then the council can vote on it.
Yeah, to endorse it. Good point. Rightio, councillors. Yeah, recommendations. Yeah.
A bit like that.
Staff make recommendations, not
Yeah.
decisions.
Rightio, Councillors, on page 84, we've got item 10.2.2, which is the a new lease for the Burham Heads Progress Association. The officer's recommendation is there on page 84. Councillor Light, you'd like to move this one? Yep. Yep, Councillor Chapman. Councillor Light, any comment?
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. It's a general comment, not particularly levelled at with the Burham Heads Progress Group, but all groups have a responsibility when they're custodians of a community asset to make sure that their governance is up to date and they're providing that tangible asset to the whole community. I welcome their application for renewal lease at Burham Heads, as we know that they've over the years have done some great work out of that hall. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Light. Councillor Chapman, you're all good. So, councillors, get a vote on this one. All those in favour? And it's another one carried unanimously. Thanks very much. Rightio. Item 10.2.3 is a pensioner concession policy, the adoption for the 1920 year. Which just starts on page 88 with the recommendation on page 88. And the policy is listed on page 90. Councillors. Councillor Truscott? Councillor Hanson's going to second that one. Councillor Truscott, any comment on this one? Councillor Hanson? Going good. Councillors, all those in favour? That's unanimous again. Thanks very much. Item 10.2.4 is our organisational performance report for May 2019, which is on pages 93, and the officer's recommendation is on 93 as well. Councillors, any comment on this one? No? Happy to move it, Councillor. You got it.
So I'm happy to move it. Questions I asked were answered prior to the meeting, so no need to reiterate those.
Yep, Councillor Light, thank you. Councillor, no questions, Councillor Light? No. Councillors, will put this motion to the vote. All those in favour? And again, this is getting good. Another unanimous. Thanks very much. Rightio, councillors, on page 111 we have item 10.2.6. Oh, hang on, no, I missed one. 108, sorry, excuse me, 10.2.5. My little tabble has moved off it, which is the councillor attendance, meeting attendance for July for 2019, with the officer's recommendation there on page 108. Councillors, Councillor Chapman, Councillor Light, any comment? Councillor Chapman, all good? As report, all those in favour, councillors? It's another unanimous. Thanks very much. Rightio, sorry. Now to 10.2.6 on page 111 is the review of the related parties disclosure document with the officer's recommendation there on 111 as well.
So, Mr Deputy Mayor, I raised the issue on behalf of Councillor Taylor and myself when he wasn't at the briefing, but the council policy's in there twice.
Yep.
As far as I can tell, it's exactly the same policy instead of the tracking one. We have received a briefing note or an email from the Director of Org Services, and I'm assuming that the typo on page 115, the control of, it should actually read control or jointly control, is now in the policy.
Thanks, Councillor Madden.
And on that basis, I'm happy to move it.
Yep, sorry, so Councillor Madden's happy to move it. Councillor Taylor, you have a question?
This is a draft until it's adopted, yeah?
Correct.
So is it, we normally would have draft on the actual...
Yeah, there's no watermark.
Yes.
Through the Chair, Councillor, thank you for the question, Councillor Taylor. There was an error in the process for collating the agenda, so the documents that were provided to the agenda section weren't in the correct format. So the proposed policy ought to have draft as a watermark. It was in the document that was reviewed, but because it was in the wrong format, that formatting was stripped out when the agenda was collated. So we've gone back and just reminded officers around the requirements to ensure that we get the proper formatting of the documents through into the future.
viewed?
I believe the director that you actually sent out an email noting the changes
Yeah.
and the whatever, so we've received that advice.
Yeah, yesterday.
Yes, on Tuesday, through the chair.
Yep. So councillors looking for a seconder for this matter? Councillor, right, thank you. No comment, Councillor Madden? No, all good. Councillor Light? Thank you. Councillors will put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Another one. I'm starting to get good at this game. Rightio, on page 125, we have item 10.3.1, which is commemorative plaques and memorials, the policy for the Fraser Coast, with the officer's recommendation there on page 125. Councillor Truscott, you'd like to move this one? Do you three, seconder for this one? Councillor Madden, yep. Councillor Truscott, any comment?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I think this is a good initiative to have this available option to the public. It's something that I know that over the last few years that has come up a few times, and I think it's good to have a procedure and policy in place for it.
Councillor Madden?
And I'd agree. I think it brings a lot of consistency, so it makes it much easier if we're out in the community and somebody says, I want to do this.
Yeah.
You know, you've got a policy and a framework, you can tell them how it can be done, and I think it's resolved quite a number of issues.
Yeah, and I think too, as the director said, indicated the other day, if members of the public do want to make donations for council to buy trees and plant trees, I think going forward, I think that's be a great initiative, and yeah, might contribute to the 100,000 tree policy that we have in place on our books. So, no other comment, councillors? No, all good. Rightio. So we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Again, carried unanimously. Getting real good at it today. Rightio. Item 10.3.2 is the use of parks for funeral services on page 134, and there's an officer's recommendation there on page 135. You happy to move it? Rightio. So that's Councillor Truscott. Councillors, we've got a seconder for that one? Councillor Light, thank you.
Another question.
Yep. Councillor Taylor's got a question for the officers.
Through the chair, on page 100, the results of the survey, which came back with significant opposition. I think there were 70 odd people that completed the 73 respondents, and I note that at the bottom of that it refers to there was areas of clear support, which is Queen's Park, the Rose Garden, Maryborough Botanical Gardens, and Eric Coe Park in Poona. Is there any way that you can identify how many of those respondents demonstrated some level of support to a park in another area? And can you comment on?
Yeah, sorry. So, yeah, so this is one for the Director of Planning and Development.
Through you, Mr Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Councillor, for your question. The answer is yes and no. So a lot of the staff have gone through and had a detailed analysis of not only the survey results which are there, but also all of the comments. So some of the comments do specify that information, but not at a level that would be statistically valid. So, you know, bear in mind that we actually have very low numbers that actually did the survey, and then lower numbers that made comments, and even lower numbers of those that specify, you know, where a concern is. So some of it is quite hard to specifically determine, but what you can pick up from the commentary quite clearly is that there was significant concern from the people who filled out the survey and provided comments around playgrounds, high-profile parklands, and a clear preference that we avoided those areas, and we've tried to create the list with that in mind.
I guess what I'm saying is the report refers to a number of areas. 73 people responded. How many of those would you say or could you even, would it have been more than 10 people that would have suggested, say, for example, Queen's Park would have been a better option? Or if one person had responded, would it make that list? That's hard for me to gain any understanding, because it sounds like in writing that it's a large number of the people who completed the survey objected to the locations, but supported other locations. Whereas it could be, in fact, maybe one person out of the 73 suggested Erico Park.
Through you, Mr Deputy Mayor and Councillor, appreciate the question. I'd probably need a few minutes to reread them, so I haven't calculated those numbers, and so I don't have them in front of me, but just quickly looking at them now, I can see several, but the specifics aren't necessarily there. So there's comments like there may be a case for memorial events away from public facilities, things like, you know, absolutely supported at Poona, ones like, I think it's a lovely idea, but a lot of that is not, you know, specific to telling me enough, and that's part of why we've presented this report today, to say we think there's validity in doing a trial, not locking this in, just let's do a trial for a predetermined period so that we can actually get some more specific feedback and see if it does cause any issues.
Mr Deputy Mayor, I apologise that we can't provide that information readily, and it's probably something we need to take on notice, but just having a quick look through the survey results that I think have been provided to councillors, there are, as Gerard said, there are a number of comments. You know, I'm reading one here. The only locations I'd approve are the use of the Bush Chapel, the Botanic Gardens, Elizabeth Street, the Black Stump Park, Esplanade Point, Vernon. As you go through it, there are a number of people that are suggesting alternative locations, and I think the recommendation that's been put forward in terms of trialling this, and it is a trial, are generally consistent with the survey results, and not parks or recreation areas that are used by the general public for, you know, recreation and sporting and those sorts of things. So I think it's a fairly limited trial, but we'd have to go through the survey results to assess.
I guess my point is that you may have 2 or 3 people that support Queen's Park, but 71 that might have strenuously objected, and unless the survey actually said, do you support the use of Queen's Park, and then you got the answer from the respondents. I'm not sure whether, from my experience, 73 is a small number. I wouldn't call it when you consider some surveys in tourism, a good survey is 100. Unemployment rate numbers are between 300 and 500, so I mean it's across Queensland. So I'm not sure 73 is something to sneeze at either. I think that's a good capture.
Mr Deputy Mayor, I appreciate Councillor Taylor's point of view. I don't think I think where we failed in relation to this particular matter is the way that we engage the community. We have got a sample of 73, which I don't believe is a statistically relevant sample, and we use Facebook, which is probably not the best forum to gauge community opinion. And what we tend to get is we took no real effort to try and inform the community about the process, and we put something up on Facebook, which I hope that we wouldn't go down that path again in terms of trying to really gauge and understand community opinion about important matters.
So on that point, my concern, and it is a matter of process, regardless of what the issue is, and I'll be upfront, if I completed the survey, I would have completed it. I wasn't comfortable with it personally and I can't give any really good reason for that, but I just don't feel comfortable with it. But if you were to say to me that if I look at a survey that the council has done that came back and said 64%, up nearly 65% of our community that were polled don't like the idea, 73% don't like the locations, and the response to that is, well, we probably didn't do the survey properly, or we could have done it better, then why are we making a decision to go against the survey results, why don't we do the survey better? But why don't you just acknowledge that we haven't done the survey properly, let's do it again?
Yes, Director? Sorry?
Through you, Mr Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Councillor. I understand your point of view, and I think I do, and that would be, you know, a valid way forward. The way we've treated it, I suppose, at officer level is we've had council resolutions asking us to prepare a list, which we did. We had a council resolution saying do some consultation. We've done that. There's no doubt that the headline numbers, as you point out, clearly answering those specific questions, clearly give you an answer. What we've attempted to do is interpret that further by going through all of the detailed comments and trying to, as best we can, understand what was the trigger for the yes or no. And I think that the comments do give us a very good feel for why people were saying yes or no. And on that basis, we've formed an opinion and put a recommendation to council that we think by cutting back those numbers of parks, by doing it in areas where it's away from, you know, the higher use areas, and by putting a 12-month time frame on it, that will allow us to assess this better over the next 12 months. We also had in the back of our minds that although this is an issue that did get the 70-odd people responding to it, it's not an issue that comes across the officer's desk on a regular basis. We've had, you know, 2 requests, I think, in 5 years for the use of it. So I suspect there's going to be very little take-up, but we have put, I suppose, those time frames on. So we put all those issues together, the headline survey numbers, the commentary and how we've interpreted that, and then come up with what we think's a viable way forward. But that alternative of doing further consultation is probably just as viable.
Yeah, Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, Acting Mayor, this motion, I wonder myself where it's actually come from. I've never had anyone that come to me that would be interested in having a funeral in a park. My stepfather passed away. We went and had a funeral, and he used to like going down to the beach, and so we went down there and had a formal gathering with the whole family where his favourite spot was. We never had no inclination to take that coffin down out into the public. And I think the respect for this and respect for our community is, we can see in here they're saying there's 60 and 70% of people are against in the review. I look at these reports and think how much money's actually gone into this, when the officer's saying that they've only been taken up 1 or 2 times of a request of doing this, and the amount of money that our council staff are spending on having funerals, when I don't feel there's a need for it. There's our funeral parlours, you can book in there quite easily to do funerals, and I just wonder where this has come from. And the other thing is I look at is I feel that I cannot support it, because I respect our community and I respect our children out there. With people we've got parks for families. The last thing I'd want to see is I'd take my family to a park and next thing a hearse turns up with a coffin. And so Mr Mayor and councillors, I cannot support this motion.
Sorry, Councillor Madden.
Yeah, I'm not speaking to what Councillor...
Yeah, we've got to move in a second.
I think it's just probably a point of clarity around the consultation.
Yeah.
It's more about, I know the statistical sample is small, but in some of our other consultation, we've had very little response to consultation, and it's been because most people don't care one way or the other, and so they haven't been responding. So my concern is we've got to be really careful, because there can be a silent majority out there who say, look, we don't care. If that's what you want to do, fine, go ahead and do it. It doesn't impact on us. So I'm not going to be either positive or negative.
Yep.
And so that was, I guess, a statement that I needed to make, not a for or against.
Yeah, so, thank you. For or against. So,
I've spoken.
are there any further questions or a speaker for? Oh, so questions first? So you're for? Yeah, councillor Truscott. So yep. You've moved it. So, sorry, councillor Lewis.
Just indicating I'm going to talk, but
So do you want to wait until you have the
Oh, yeah, I can
right
wait till...
reply? So, councillor Lewis, you may default to you, please.
look, I'm a bit conflicted with this, and I note that there are some people who don't want it in Point Vernon, which is, of course, my division, although somebody suggested it would be okay in Blackstone Park, which isn't one of the parks on the list and which I wouldn't think would be an appropriate place to do it, because there are children's playgrounds there and so on. I'm going to vote for it, but with some concern, and I'm doing so simply on the basis that it is a 12-month trial. I take on board what Councillor Madden has said, that one of the reasons it's a relatively small sample probably is that a lot of people don't mind, and I guess don't mind it goes in the column that isn't opposed to it. But I think it would be worth, if we do the trial, it'd be worth seeing what take-up there is, and it gives people perhaps a better basis to come back and give us a more informed decision in 12 months' time. I respect that there's, roughly 2/3 of the population that did respond generally not happy with it. I think we won't be impinging too much on their rights if we do this for 12 months and see what happens.
Thanks, councillor Lewis. Councillor Hanson, you're going to speak against it? Yeah, I was just lost there for a second. You're against speaking against it?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Look, I don't know. It's a really tough one. I mean, a funeral is the most personal thing, and where you choose to have your service is the most personal thing that any decision that anyone can make, and certainly any family can make. And I guess I'm not really for or against, but I look at the statistics here, and to me, it's pretty. I know it's a relatively small number that responded to the survey, but there's 60, 70, 65, 85% generally speaking and are against it. I have some concerns about the locations, in particular the old Maryborough town site, where it looks like it's going to be at the entrance of the park. I would have thought that having it at the back of the park would have been more of a common sense decision. But yeah, I will be opposing the motion purely based on the statistics that come back from the survey.
Thanks, councillor Hanson. Any other councillors speak for the motion? Nope. Against? Are you
Yeah, I will be speaking against this motion, and it's it's one that's weighed heavily on me, because I understand that death is a natural part of life, that people need to be able to express their grief and loss, and we shouldn't necessarily shun people away from society or hide the fact that we have a loss in our lives. But what we have here is a process that council has followed, where people have provided responses, and in my view, the overwhelming majority of people in this survey don't support the idea that was proposed in the survey, and that is consistent with the feedback that I've received as a councillor when speaking to people about it. I note in the discussions, or in the survey results, even when there's reference made to Queen's Park, there's, for example, a reference made in question 6, which says, where one of the respondents says, Queen's Park near the waterfall is okay, as it's not so visible, but then no caskets. And if you look at the responses in relation to closed caskets, it's quite clear that people have issues with that, and I'm not sure that our community is in a place right now where we can receive feedback from our community, look at the results, and then make a decision that I believe conflicts with that feedback. I think if this is something that council is keen on pursuing, then it should be a discussion and dialogue with council and the community, rather than doing a trial and seeing if there's any, I guess, kickback, backlash or issues raised. I'm not sure in this situation if that's the right way to progress. For that reason, I think I'm not, personally, I'm not there yet. I'm not comfortable with going down to a park and having to have a discussion with an 8-year-old boy. You know, unfortunately, my son has got a level of anxiety. So I immediately default to my own personal issues that I would have to, I know exactly how I'd have to discuss that. And on reading that, some parents in here are saying, you know, what about counselling for our children? I understand that because I feel that. I completely support Councillor Truscott in pursuing this, and I think he is far more liberated in his view of an understanding of death than I am. I come from a background where I've picked up more dead bodies than I wish to ever remember. I suffer post-traumatic stress, and it's nearly cost me my family. So for that purpose, as a parent and somebody who suffers post-traumatic stress, I just couldn't comprehend the idea of having funerals in a public place. And for that reason alone, I just can't support it.
Rightio, so another speaker for it, Councillor Keith. Are you speaking for or against? Against? So we'll default to Councillor, yep, Councillor Sanderson.
Thanks, Mr Chair, and through the Chair and to Councillor Truscott, I commend my colleague for doing what he has and bringing this to Council. And you've done a great job, Councillor Truscott, in relation to getting it here and going through it. It's hard that, you know, I wouldn't have minded to see maybe an amendment where we could look at trialling certain parks that aren't public. I know parks are public places, but I do agree that if having children as well, going into a park and seeing a casket with a family around, I totally honour that. At the same time, though, I think, as Councillor Taylor has said, it's imperative that that straight away would be the reaction from our children, and I'm sure other people's children and families. What's happening? I didn't know. I know we've gone through extensive consultation, but the first reaction I'm sure we would receive is, I didn't know we could do that. And secondly, I think there is, I know we've all had loved ones pass away. There is places that we can do that respectfully. This could be an option. I just thought, say for example Queen's Park and those places, probably not. But if it was a park that not a lot of people went to, that still had great symbolic resemblance for those people, I would have been happy to support that. So if council are willing to look at that, that's an option. Otherwise, unfortunately, I won't be able to support.
Right, thanks, Councillor Sanderson. Councillor...
One question to the officer.
To the Director? Yep.
To the Director, just one question I've got. Say if someone books a funeral in a park for $200 and these family go down there to have a funeral in the park, and someone down there is in a sort of a unfriendly manner and abuses someone at that funeral over having the casket there, what has the council got any responsibility over that, or where does the council stand?
Through you, Mr Mayor, thank you, Councillor Chapman. I wouldn't see it as any different to how we currently hire out for those same facilities for wedding receptions, birthday parties, or a whole range of other activities. So the reality is, and it's an issue which has been discussed at roundtables and elsewhere, we have a very light touch regulatory approach to the booking of our facilities. Some councils, do go a lot further and charge much higher booking fees, but then they will cordon off areas and provide signage and things like that. Most of our bookings are essentially non-exclusive. Obviously, there's areas where that's a little bit different in terms of the Botanic Gardens and the like, where we have staff there, and you can cordon it off more. But our current process for bookings is very light touch, and that's for if you book it for any type of event, regardless. This would be a new type of event that you currently can't book for.
Councillor Sanderson, you've indicated you've got another question?
Yes, Mr Chair, yeah. So, following on from Mr Carline, Director, in relation to that, does that mean that if we still have people come to council and say, I would like to have a funeral in a park, we're saying today that however it goes, we'll make yes or no, would we still allow that if it was deep, to that family to do it?
Chair would
Yeah, I can answer that. If this motion was not successful, I would take that as clear intent, a clear sign of council's intent and position with respect to funerals and parks, and wouldn't be providing or giving authority without coming back to council.
Rightio. So, last chance, Councillor O'Keefe, you're all good? Righto, Councillor Truscott as the mover of the motion.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Yeah, appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate the feedback that we've heard here today, and thank you, Councillor Taylor, for sharing your experiences and insight into what you've experienced over the years. One of the things, Councillor Sanderson, that you raised was about if there was a trial for the more secluded parks. That's exactly what this actually is today. So I'm not entirely sure, because this is the parks that aren't, or these are the sections of parks that aren't as heavily trafficked as other areas. One of the, I suppose, wild assumptions that has been made over the time, and was the most common form of feedback in the response, was that the assumption that you're going to go to the park with your children and see a funeral. And that was, I think, as far from what's actually happening as could be, because none of the parks that were suggested were places where you would see that, because generally you don't take your kids to a park where there's no play equipment or there's nothing there. You take them to a park like Anzac Park or Yalula where there is play equipment and that they're going to have a fun time. And at no point in time has any park like Anzac Park or a spot on the Esplanade been suggested. So why that has kept coming up has confused me. As it has been suggested, yes, 73 responses is not a statistically sound response. And in terms of, yes, it perhaps didn't go out as far and wide as it could have, but I don't think that's for lack of the media attention that it received. And thank you, Blake, back there, because it received national coverage. It received a lot of attention when it was first raised, so it's not like people didn't know about it. I've had calls from New South Wales and Victoria from people saying thanks to our council for exploring the option, and they wish that their council was more open to the idea to doing it. We make policies in place so that when things happen, we've got an option of what can be done, and this is to simply look at that. I agree with what Director Carline said, that I don't imagine there would be a huge uptake on this, especially initially if there was to be much at all, but it's there so that should the situation arise, there's a policy and procedure in place as to what can happen. I think that a trial is a good option, and I think that the parks, as suggested, have been good suggestions. I take on board Councillor Hanson's suggestion. I think that would be more appropriate at the back of the original Maryborough site. I think would be more suitable. But yeah, the feedback that I've received is that whilst it might not suit a lot of people, there'll be those people that it would suit, and they would really appreciate the opportunity. And again, it's not an expectation of going to the park with your family to have a barbecue and play on the playground. Has that ever been a suggestion? Because these are the parks that don't have playground equipment. These are those parks. Sorry. And so, yeah, just wanted to make those points clear. But I think, look, whatever happens, happens, and we accept that and move on. And I thank the staff for having seen it through to this point from when it was first raised. And, yeah, all right, thank you.
Rightio, thanks councillor Truscott. Councillor Light, no comment from you? Yeah. Yep. So I had an inquiry from councillor Sanderson over this side. Yep, rightio. So just to be clear, the officer's recommendation on page 135, the council notes the results of the community consultation process. Item 1, point 2 is conducts a 12-month trial from July 2019 to June 2020, allowing closed caskets funeral in the list of parks identified in attachment 1 of this report, and applies a ceremonial booking charge of $200 to funerals in the parks during the trial period. The motion was moved by councillor Truscott, was seconded by councillor Light. So all those in favour? That's 1, 2, hang on, 6, yep, and all those against. Rightio, and the motion is carried. 6, 4, rightio. So we have to note zones left the room.
Excuse me, Mr Chair,
Sorry.
can we just for the benefit of the minute taker, we just confirm those that
Fours?
voted against?
Oh, sorry, against?
Oh, yeah, it's recorded now.
Yeah, sorry. So sorry, those against, please. And yep, so we've got
You got that? Okay, thank you.
4 against. Yep. 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 Just got to catch up with modern technology. Right, councillors, on page 154 is item 10.3.3, which is the Fraser Coast Economic Roadmap, a pathway towards a sustainable economic growth to 2030 and beyond. Just before this one, to the CEO, we've got in the officer's recommendation on page 155 that council endorse the economic roadmap, and then you've got point 2 that council endorses the Fraser Coast Economic Roadmap implementation plan. Can we, do they have to be done separate, or are they together? As
That's
one?
entirely up to council if they want to do them together.
Yep. No, just in the caution, just being cautious. Yeah, righto. So councillor Chapman. Yep. Do you vote? Yep. And a second for that one, please. Councillor Madden. Councillor Chapman. Oh, sorry. Councillors, any questions on this one? Comment, questions? Councillor Chapman, over to you.
No, I'd just like to say that I'd like the council to endorse this. It's great that we've actually got an economic development team really working hard, and they are doing a really good job and helping move our economy along. So thank you.
Councillor Madden.
Yes, I think I'd just like to thank the staff and to thank all the community people who've contributed to this whole process. I'm really pleased to see that there were some actual milestones. Oftentimes we get reports with no measurables, and I'm pleased to see that there are some measurables there. Whether we get that far with the measurables or not is another matter, but the process is available and in place. So thank you.
Councillor Truscott.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Yeah, just to reiterate the comments of Councillor Chapman and Councillor Madden, I think just to commend the staff in this area, in our economic and investment attractions department. They've been doing a terrific job lately. I think there's been great improvement. We've seen tremendous growth internally and externally that they've done, and just to commend the staff.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add too, through the Director and the CEO, that the feedback I'm getting from the business community has been first class around the economic development officers. The officers are going to see businesses, they're engaging with the business owners, the business management, and we're from the council, we're here to help you, and it's been really well received from the business community, and there are a number of business owners who have a lot of faith in the region and in the direction we're heading in. So to your staff, Jared, thanks. So councillors, we'll put this motion which is on page 155. The council endorses the Fraser Coast Economic Roadmap and the implementation plan. That council notes the consultation report and council notes the investment attraction strategy and accompanying council policy. So councillors, this was moved by Councillor Chapman, seconded by Councillor Madden. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thanks, councillors. Rightio. Item 10.3.4 is the Fraser Coast Rural Residential Strategy, which is on pages 158 to 163 in our agendas. And there is also the readings in the addendum, which is a substantial amount of reading there. So, councillors, the officer's recommendation is there on page 158. Councillors, are there any questions around this one? No questions? No. Seek a councillor to move this motion. Councillor Light. And seconder is Councillor Madden. Councillor Light, any comment? Councillor Madden. It's an easy one. Right, we'll put this motion. All those in favour? That's passed unanimously. Thanks, councillors. Rightio. Councillors, our next item is 10.3.5, which is the Mary to Bay Rail Trail Development Plan, which is pages 164 to 290, with an officer's recommendation on page 164 and 165. It's a shame that Bundaberg stole our thunder yesterday, councillors, and announced their rail trail, which is, I guess, good to see for rail trail tourism, and will benefit. Yeah, they are followers. No, they'll be knocking on doors the same as us. They'll be seeking funding. But Bundaberg Regional Council announced this yesterday. So as a potential tourism product going forward, I think this makes our region a very strong. Sorry, I'm speaking for this motion. But yeah, look, it's going to be a great tourism asset for us going forward. Councillors, can we have someone to move this motion? Oh, Councillor O'Keefe. Seconded by Councillor Lewis. Councillor O'Keefe, if you'd like to comment on this.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I look forward to seeing the rail trail project being listed as a major project eventually for this council, contingent on state and federal funding. And yeah, for me, this is a really exciting opportunity to reactivate a link that has existed or did exist between Maryborough City and Hervey Bay City. So very exciting times ahead, and yeah, I commend the motion.
Councillor Lewis.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yes, look, I endorse Councillor O'Keefe's comments there. This is an exciting project, and it's a project which the cycling community in the Fraser Coast has been pushing for quite a number of years. I've seen reports going back about 10 years on this, and there's been a lot of work done on it over time. It is a great opportunity, and it works in well with the state government's strategy for developing rail trails and those kind of cycling infrastructure. There's plenty of tourist potential, but it also offers a great deal for the local community, and I think it'll be a great way to link our two major population centres as well. It also provides a much safer environment for people to cycle, especially young children, rather than trying to use what's becoming a fairly busy main road. I think, as Councillor O'Keefe says, we ought to be pushing for funding on this and moving it as quickly as we can. Could I just ask, perhaps the Director might give us an indication of what the next steps are with progressing this project, perhaps?
Councillor, Director.
Yeah, through you, Mr Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Lewis. So the key task that we need to, I suppose, acquit as quickly as possible is securing those corridors. So subject to Council's deliberation today, should the motion be passed, we'll be moving very quickly engage with the landowners to secure those alternative corridors. Beyond that, we'll be working with our colleagues in the infrastructure department about the scheduling or further design work and timing around those. But the key first task is to get that corridor secured, then to obviously look for funding, but also to look at further design packages and work out how we break that down efficiently.
Rightio, councillors, we'll put this motion if there's no other questions. No, rightio. So this motion is moved by Councillor O'Keefe, seconded by Councillor Lewis. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. That's another unanimous decision. Rightio, councillors, if page 291 is item 10.3.6, is the needs assessment for the new RV site at Prickett Park, Maryborough, and additional overnight parking in H.J. Davis Council and McDowell, H.J. Davis and McDowell car parks. Starts 291 with the officer's recommendation on 292. Councillors, any questions on this matter? No. Oh, seek a mover on this one. Councillor Madden. And Councillor Truscott. Councillor Madden, would you like to speak to this
Yes,
matter?
as you probably all know, I'm pretty much in favour of RVs and planning to do a fair bit of it. But there was, in lots of cases, we don't have much in the way of statistical data to base decisions on. In this particular case, we do have the statistical data on the, I always call it the airport one, Doon Villa Park, and that's sort of indicative that there is still spare capacity. I also note in the open register on page 45 that there's this is to be reviewed and the target date is 2020. So if we get a boom season this year and Doon Villa is full up all of the time, then there is the capacity to further go back and review further options. I mean, the RV industry, based on my experience out at Alpha, where there was 26 people, $20,000 into those communities in a 10-day event, and just seeing what's happening out there is a sector of the tourism market that we desperately need to tag as much as we can, but acknowledging at this point that we do have spare capacity in Maryborough.
Thanks, Councillor Madden. Councillor Truscott.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Yes, I would have to agree with this. As we all know, I've been a strong proponent of RVs coming into Fraser Coast and particularly Maryborough, and I thank Councillor Madden and others for the support with that. I think it's great what's happened so far and the growth that we've seen in it already. As has been mentioned, it's not at capacity at this time, so there perhaps isn't the need to grow it further at this stage. I'm just wondering, where was it, sorry, that it said about the...
Yeah,
I was just trying to have a look at that.
Page 45. Item
Oh, the
one.
target date
Yeah.
of January 2020. So I guess I've generally had a question about how will that happen, or what will trigger that to make sure that does take place. But otherwise, I am satisfied with this recommendation and support it.
So sorry, you
I'd be interested, I suppose, through the CEO. Yeah.
Sorry, the question is?
So
Sorry,
the review that this suggests to conduct in the open resolutions register, it says there'll be a review at January 2020, but it's not part of an actual recommendation that's on 292. So I just wasn't sure how we might conduct that.
Sorry, Mr CEO.
Through you, Mr Mayor, thank you, Councillor Truscott. It kind of a little bit goes back to Councillor Taylor's question earlier. I deliberately crafted the recommendation so that this didn't, I didn't want this to sit in perpetuity on the open resolutions register. When we've got another process in place that we've recently adopted, the RV strategy, which includes a whole range of implementation measures. So we're working through the implementation planning for all of that at the moment, and building that into sort of business as usual for for council officers. So that was my plan in terms of taking forward all of the RV measures, including the regular review, without the need ideally to have it just sitting on the open resolutions register in perpetuity.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Rightio, thanks. So, so this motion was moved by Councillor Madden, seconded by Councillor Truscott. All those in favour? And that's carried. Oh, sorry. So all those in favour? So we've got 9 and against 1. Thanks. Yep. Okie dokie. Rightio, councillors, page 295 is item 10.3.7, which is the Fraser Coast Animal Management. There is a recommendation there on page 295, but this report be received and noted. Councillor Madden, Councillor Light, sorry. A seconder for this one? Councillor Truscott. Councillor Light, any comment on this? No? Yep, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I appreciate this effort that the staff, Director Carline and your staff have put into this. I appreciate this was from motions that I've raised in the past, and the work that's still being undertaken as we've recently met with local groups such as the Maryborough District Animal Refuge, and the work that they're doing with animals in our community, but also identifying the needs throughout the whole Fraser Coast. And with the adoption of the budget recently, with the addition of new staff and new vehicles and equipment, I think this is all a good move forward to have better animal management throughout the Fraser Coast. So I thank you and the staff for that, and look forward to hopefully for the next financial year seeing much better outcomes for animals and their owners.
Thanks, Councillor Truscott. So, councillors, this 10.3.7, the Fraser Coast Animal Management, was moved by Councillor Light, seconded by Councillor Truscott. All those in favour? Unanimously. Thanks very much. You did, Councillor Madden. Welcome back. 10.4, Infrastructure Services. There is nil on the agenda, so we jump over to 10.5, item 10.5, which is the water and waste services on pages 299, with the officer's recommendation on 299 as well, which is the Wide Bay Water Waste Services Quarter 3 report from January-March 2019. Councillor Madden, I suggest you would like to move this one?
Yes, I do.
Seconder for this one? Councillor Truscott. Councillor Madden.
It's all self-explanatory. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, Councillor Truscott. All good, rightio. So moved Councillor Madden, seconded Councillor Truscott. Just getting councillors mixed up. All those in favour? That's unanimous again. Thanks very much. Item 10.5.2 on pages 314 is the Wide Bay Water Waste and Waste Services Advisory Charter, with the officer's recommendation there on pages 314 as well. Councillor Madden, you'll move that one?
Yes, I will.
A seconder for this one? Councillor Light. Councillor Madden.
Yes, I would like to speak to this one. This lists 4 external members for appointment to the Wide Bay Water Advisory Committee. Just from personal experience, these people contribute a lot to our discussions. And a new member that hasn't been there for particularly long is Mr. Peter Burrows. And really the value that they bring to this committee is quite, it's extraordinary really, and very, very useful, and I really commend their appointment and their commitment to this advisory committee.
Thanks, Councillor. Thank you. Tongue-tied. Councillor Light, rightio. So, councillors, this one has been 10.5.2. Moved by Councillor Madden, seconded by Councillor Light. All those in favour? Yeah, another unanimous. Thanks very much. Rightio, councillors, on page 328 is 10.5.3. Just, Mr CEO, is this one that we're adopting as a whole? The recommendations there on pages 328.
That's 348.
328, sorry. So you've got adopt the water charges relief policy, volume 3. Then point 2 is adopt the waste management fee concession policy, volume 4. And then you've got the...
We can adopt the recommendations as they are, or
Yep.
you can do them individually.
Individually.
With respect to the budget, sorry, Mr Deputy Mayor, we can adopt the recommendations as they appear, or you can adopt each recommendation separately. The issue in relation to the budget adoption and the separate adoption of each resolution was more to do with best practice, so it would be best practice that each of these would be adopted separately.
Thanks for the clarification. Councillor Truscott, you happy to move this one? And it's
Item 1, item 2, and item 3 separately.
on,
It's best
the-
practice.
Yeah, so do you want to do that with this one? Yep, rightio. So Councillor Truscott is going to move item 1, which is... oh, sorry.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just noting the amendment that was emailed out to councillors earlier today in relation to the waste management fee concession policy and how that changed that second resolution.
Hang on. Oh, yeah, sorry, thanks. What councillors are you across? Do you want to speak to it, please? Yeah.
It was an amendment to the second resolution
Yep.
to include a report back in July. So I can talk to the issue that I was emailed out this morning.
Yeah, can you
So,
please?
In preparing the waste management fee concession policy, officers took into regard the implications of the Queensland State Waste Levy. Now, there's aspects of that legislation that will allow waste from charity bin organisations, for example, to apply for an exemption under the levy. In capturing those changes within that policy, it may have inadvertently restricted other community groups who previously had access to that concession policy. And so the email that I sent out this morning was to amend recommendation 2 to adopt the waste management fee concession policy and bring a further report back to the July ordinary meeting to ensure the scope of attachment 1 remains consistent with the version 3 policy.
Yep.
And the reason to adopt the policy today was still to allow the other provisions of that policy and those other concessions to commence from July 1.
Yep, no worries. So councillors, we all good with that one? So Councillor Truscott, you cross that one? Rightio, so we're looking for a seconder for the first one. The water charges, Councillor Light, yep, thank you. So, right, point 1, adopt the waters charge relief policy. So that's moved by Councillor Truscott, seconded by Councillor Light. All those in favour? That's carried. Thanks, councillors. So point 2 of this motion is adopt the waste management fee concession policy, volume 4. So if I could have a mover for this one, please. Councillor Light, and seconded by Councillor Hanson. Councillor Light, any comment? Councillor Chapman? Nope. So this is one with the amendment as on page 351. There'll be amendment. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, behind us. Right, our councillor. So we good with that? Yep. Rightio, so the report's coming back at July ordinary meeting. Rightio, so that one's moved by Councillor Light, seconded by Councillor Hanson. All those in favour? Hang on. Just give us 1 sec, sorry. Yeah, so, righto. All those in favour of this one? That's unanimous. Oh, hang on. Right, sorry. Sorry for the confusion. Rightio. And the waste management, adopt the waste management policy, which is point 3 of this one. So we've got Councillor Madden is going to do that one. Councillor Lewis is going to second at this one. Rightio. So point 3 is adopt the waste management policy, volume 12, which has been moved by Councillor Madden, seconded by Councillor Lewis. All those in favour? And that one's carried unanimously as well. Thank you very much, councillors. Sorry, officers, for the confusion there. Rightio. Item 12 is questions on notice. Nil have been received. Actually, yeah, sorry, Mr CEO, we should do 16 first, shouldn't we, before we do anything else?
That's general business.
Oh, no, the open agenda, yeah, sorry. So we'll go to 16.1, which is in our supplementary agenda, which is interim local law 1, the administration, and the officer's recommendation is there on 391. Sorry, 391. 391? Yep, and our recommendation there is on 391 as well. All right, councillors, Councillor Lewis, you happy to move this one? Thank you. Is it? Councillor Light, thank you. Second in this one. Councillor Lewis, any question, comment? Councillor Light? Rightio, we'll put this one. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. If we can please head over to 16.1.2, which is on page 565. One for Mr CEO. The delegations register update from council to chief executive officer. With the recommendation there, the officer's recommendation is on 565. Mr CEO, have you got any comment around this one?
No, this is purely an administrative, allow me to carry out the administrative functions as determined by council.
Thank you. Looking for a mover of this motion, please. Yep, sorry, Councillor Taylor, and seconded by Councillor, thank you, Councillor Light. Councillor Taylor, any comment?
No, thank you.
Councillor Light. Rightio, all those in favour? That's unanimous. Councillor Lewis, were you up? Yep.
Yes, I was happy to delegate the CEO.
CEO, thank you, that's unanimous. Marlene. Rightio. Item 16.1.3, which is on page 582. Is it, yeah, you'll move it. Rightio. So the motion there is Councillor Seymour would give a notice of the following motion, that the CEO be directed to ensure that all events organised by Fraser Coast Regional Council are conducted in accordance with best practice principles for inclusiveness and accessibility, and that the condition of funding for events run by external agencies at their events incorporates best practice principles for inclusiveness and accessibility. You'll second that one, thanks, Councillor O'Keefe. So that's moved by Councillor Truscott, seconded by Councillor O'Keefe.
Sorry, whether in point 2 there, if it should say that it be a condition of council funding, would that clarify it?
As it's a council resolution, I think it's clear, but if you want to have condition of council funding, that's fine.
I think so. Are you happy with that, seconder? Zane?
Can you just...
I'm happy with it as it is in the document.
Yeah, so can you just speak to your...
I just thought it should really clarify it, that it's funding coming from council, like that we don't have any control over anything else, but just the word council in front of funding.
Sure, motion.
Yeah. You happy with that?
So there's...
So can you just elaborate on what you...
Just to include the word council in front of funding, so that it's council funding that we're... Yeah.
So funding. Rightio, so good with that change of the word inclusion in point 2 of the word council in front of funding. So this motion has been moved by Councillor Truscott, seconded by Councillor O'Keefe. All those in favour? Thanks very much, councillors. Right, yeah. Item 16.1.4 is a motion on the rural fire levy, which has been put forward by Councillor Light. Councillors... It's Councillor Light? No, sorry. Yeah, righto. So the motion is that the Chief Executive Officer prepare a report at the minimum to address the role of rural fire services throughout the Fraser Coast, including services provided within the urban fire zones. Point B is the current arrangement for collection and distribution of the rural fire levy, including the impact of the new urban fire stations. Point C is alternative options for the collection and distribution of funds to contribute to the operational and development of all rural fire brigades in the Fraser Coast. Point D is the council's statutory obligation to fund rural fire services. And point E is the number of rural fire brigades in the Fraser Coast and the number of rural fire brigades within the urban zones. Thank you, Councillor Light. I'll move that. Yep, Councillor Light. Yeah, Paul and Councillor Truscott. Councillor Light.
Thank you so much, Deputy Mayor. I brought this motion up for a report. Consider as it outlines the funding that the council provides the rural fire service. Recently attending a meeting with QFES and other emergency services, it came to light that when a urban fire station is founded, that fire brigades, or the rural fire brigades in that area, can lose and has lost potential funding. This is a complicated matter. There is multiple different levies, including state and council, and we need to clarify this in this report, how we can support the rural fire service in a fairer, equitable way. At the moment, this current model to me is flawed, where an urban fire station can be founded, and for instance there will ultimately be one at Howard, and the rural fire levy, which is a council fire levy, will evaporate. So eventually their ultimate funding, their bucket of money, is being reduced. However, the need for the fire service in those areas are not reduced. Just because there's an urban fire station doesn't mean that we need the capabilities of the rural fire service. The other consideration is, and as the chair of the LDMG, is that we have over 20 rural fire brigades in our region. Those rural fire brigades have multiple appliances, very motivated and professional volunteers. I know in that role as the chair that they can be used throughout the region for multiple tasks. So I believe that we need to continue to support them, but support them in a fairer way. So I put this motion forward for a report to be done for our consideration, and so we can fairer and a more equitable way of funding helping to fund the rural fire service.
Thanks, Councillor Light. Councillor Truscott.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I agree with this, and I commend Councillor Light for bringing this forward for attention and to be addressed. I think it's an important issue, and I thank you for your continued and ongoing support of our fire services throughout the Fraser Coast.
Thank you. Councillors will put this motion. So this motion's been moved by Councillor Light, seconded by Councillor Truscott. All those in favour? That's another unanimous one. Thanks very much, councillors. Rightio. Questions on notice? There was none. Councillors, consideration of items placed on the agenda with the consent of the Mayor, there's nil. And general business. So, councillors, any general business?
Just very general business. I note that I wasn't at public participation this morning. It was my intention, and I was slightly late to the meeting. I had an urgent family matter that I had to attend to with a sick child, so if it can be noted that I was in absence for that reason.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor.
Mr Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sanderson has brought to my attention that whilst we have confirmed the minutes of the previous meeting, there appears to be an error on page 11 of the minutes of the previous meeting. Page 11 on the agenda, clause 12, it relates to the conflict of interest, and it says the nature of the conflict of Councillor Sanders' conflict of interest is that his parents are members of one of the organisations that would benefit from the funding. This appears to be an error, and it should say that his parents were once volunteers of the organisation. Whilst we've confirmed, the minutes have been confirmed,
yep.
So what I would be suggesting that perhaps someone would like to move a resolution that amends.
You'd have to rescind the original motion.
Yeah.
I didn't realise that's what you were referring to
Yeah.
before. You'd rescind the original motion of item, where is it? ordinary minutes, so item 5.1, and then you start again. So the
You-
first...
You can do that, or you could note the error.
If you're doing that, sorry, Mr.
But then the
CEO,
minutes won't be amended.
I hadn't read it that thoroughly, obviously either, because I noticed then in the declaration that I had on page 10 has the same error.
Okay, well, I'd be suggesting, Mr Deputy Mayor, that the council may wish to rescind the motion that the minutes be confirmed, that, and then discuss those two errors in the minutes, correct them, and then a council move a motion that the minutes as amended be confirmed.
So
I move that way.
Councillor Taylor is going to move that we rescind the minutes.
And I'll second that,
Hang on.
that I moved these minutes.
Can we do that Can we do that as the first part, and then...
Yep.
The motion 5.1
Be rescinded.
be rescinded to be reconsidered
Yep.
immediately, just to
yeah.
clarify that we're not rescinding it
And
forever.
Councillor Madden, you're happy to second?
Yes, I moved it, but I'm happy to second the rescission motion.
Yep,
Yeah.
of item 5.1. So, councillors, all those in favour? That's unanimous. That's to rescind 5.1, the confirmation of the meeting minutes.
Appropriate, sorry. Mr Deputy Mayor, it'd be appropriate for a councillor to move a motion that, item 11A, sorry, 11, I'll go with, what's 11A? Yeah, that item 11A of the minutes of the previous meeting be amended to reflect that Councillor Truscott's mother is a volunteer of one of the organisations, and that item 12A be amended to reflect that Councillor Sanderson's parents were once volunteers of the organisations.
That's confusing. Rightio. So would someone like to move that one? Councillor Light?
I'll move that, yep.
Thank you.
And that the minutes be adopted.
Well,
And
then I was
and
going to
then-
do the next motion first. So move that amended, and
Yep.
then the minute as amended be adopted. be
So
confirmed.
the amendment, as read by the CEO, moved by Councillor Light, seconded by Councillor Hanson.
So, Mr Deputy Mayor, it'd now be appropriate for a councillor to move a motion that the...
We've got to vote. We've got to vote on that one first. So that's moved by Councillor Light. Geez, George. I was just thinking that he picked a great day to get sick, didn't he? So moved by Councillor. That's what the CEO said. Moved by Councillor Light, seconded by Councillor Hanson. All those in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous.
Mr Deputy Mayor, it'd be now appropriate for the council to consider, a councillor to perhaps move a motion that the minutes as amended be confirmed.
As amended, be confirmed.
I will do that, seeing as I'll move them first.
Councillor Madden, thank you very much. Blodsworth, Botwood. And a seconder for this one, please. Councillor Light, thanks very much. All those in favour? Hallelujah. Thank you. Yeah, eventually. Just before we finish up and go into confidential, just like to acknowledge the passing of past Maryborough Councillor Ted Webber, and acknowledge all the great work that Ted did right across the region, especially in the sporting circles, the Maryborough Show Society, etc.
Our condolence motion would normally be the rising condolence of, and that the rising is the formal taking of the actual vote. We don't have to take a vote because,
I think we should do a formal
Formal condolence motion.
yeah, and that is the right, yeah, but
would
we
you
do
like
it by a standing, yeah.
Yes. So,
So, did you want to do that, Paul?
You're all moving it.
yeah, so I'm happy to move, and Councillor Sanderson. So if we rise and acknowledge. Thank you, councillors and officers and media. It's been a mission today, Mr CEO. A bit of a mission today, Mr CEO.
So we'll make sure that we get flowers.
Yeah. Yeah, rightio. Councillors, can I have someone move that we move into confidential? So, hang on, do we want to? Okay, so, rightio, so, okay, so Councillor Light's going to move that we go in, have an adjournment, 10 minutes, Councillor Anderson. Are you going to respond to Dave Franklin for us? So councillors, so I'm looking for a motion to reconvene today's meeting. This
Yes,
is,
I so move.
Councillor Lewis, seconded by Councillor Madden. All those in favour? Councillors? Yeah, no, we don't. Right, I've just got to get this right. So, councillors, we are now about to move into confidential to discuss two matters. Item 15.1, which is a council property matter, which is comes under section 275E of the Local Government Regulation 2012, and contracts proposed to be made by it. And item 15.2, which is another council land matter, which is under section 275E and H of the Local Government Regulation 2012, contracts proposed to be made by it and business for which public discussion would likely to be prejudice and interests of the local government or something else. I can't even see with my glasses today, or enable persons to gain a financial advantage. God, that was a mission. So can I have someone move that we go into confidential? Which is... Sorry about that. Rightio. Right, 15.2 is council land at Burham Town. Councillor Hanson, you would like to move this one? Sure. And seconded by Councillor Light, correct? All those in favour? Carried. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, officers. Meeting closed at 12:48.